Good morning and welcome to the weekly market update. Please let me introduce the president of CAMP, Mr. Kevin Casey. Kevin.
Good morning, mortgage professionals, and welcome to another Tuesday update with special guest Barry Habib and also Megan Anderson. Thank you guys for coming. A couple of quick announcements. First of all, if you're not a member, please make sure you are. Go check on the campsite.org and just type your name in under membership. You'll see if your membership is renewed or not. A lot of people think they're members and they discover later they are not, and it's better to find out sooner versus later. We have a couple of big events coming up. We have our happy hour this coming Thursday, 5 to 6. It's always fun. Always like to hear from other mortgage professionals what's going on. That's where we find out, what's you guys need to know so we can have special guests to talk about that stuff. We also have a 8-hour NMLS class. If you have not renewed your NMLS class, you have not taken your class, you want to do it now. The DBO has announced that anyone who does not register by November 30th will not have their license renewed in time for them to practice January 1st. So
may not.
Okay, so they're busy changing their name to the D something, I forget the letters now.
California Department of Finance and Innovation or some ridiculous thing like that.
We don't want innovative finance. It sounds like creative financing, but that's their new name, and they're going to be busy doing all that shifting, and so they won't have time to renew licenses like they normally do. So if you know anybody who hasn't taken the 8-hour course this Saturday, there's another one Thursday with David Luna for the North Bay chapter. They can also go to that class. And then, oh, by the way, Audrey and I will be teaching the Saturday class. So we're going to co-teach it, so you get a little more interesting class that way. And then
it's only an 8-hour class, but it will seem like 20 hours. So they got that to look forward to.
Yeah, no, it'll seem like it. And then lastly, we got Brian Veldo. Is it Brian or Michael? Michael Veldo.
Michael Velzo.
Velvo. Coming to, thank you.
Velzo.
As Audrey said, he is a financial advisor. He's going to give us some tips and tricks with the new laws that just recently passed and how they're going to affect our clients, so we can be up on top of all that stuff. Proposition 19, number 1, will be a big change for the California property owners. So pay attention to that one. And then with that, I am turning it over to Miss Audrey Boysenat.
Thank you, Kevin, so much. I will say that today, more than ever, people are going to want to be members. So we'll have a little announcement coming up. But first, I just want to welcome Barry Habib and Megan Anderson and thank them, as always, for being with us. They're most generous with their time. And in the last number of months, which seems like 1,200 years since all this crazy began, and we started doing these updates, every time we ask them if they will come and join us, they say yes. And every time, we ask Megan, do you have something that you could share with our members, with our listeners about social media? The answer is always yes. And for this, we are grateful. And it is that spirit in our industry that makes us so special. And so thank you for being here today, guys.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you. Thank you. Did I hear that people listening are not members? I mean, come on, you got to be members. You have to be. This is like such a thankless job that Audrey and Kevin are doing, and the other members of the team. Megan Jackson, you are just doing so many good things. So the only way that you can show your support and help is just be members to this thing, because they're doing a lot of good for you. So I owe you guys so much for so many years with Camp, where, I don't know how many, I don't want to admit how many years it is. Okay. So it goes back, the year starts with a 1, what I'm saying? Like here's 2020, the year starts with a 1.
Yes.
So it's been longer than 20 years. Let's just leave it at that, since I've been involved with you guys. Megan, it's great to be with you, of course, always here. And I think that what we want to kind of go over is what's going on today. And I want to really talk a little bit about a misconception that's in the media specific about affordability, right, Megan? We're hearing that over and over.
Yes, we have been hearing that over and over, that homes are getting, there's an affordability problem, prices keep going up, people aren't going to be able to afford it. And it's so important that we unpack this and we break it down. And Barry, you have such a gift with this.
Well, thanks, Meg. So here's the scoop, everyone. Right now, there's a big story that's going on in the media, and Diana Olick is all over it. What a shock. Adam Data, what a shock, all over it. The Crash Brothers, all over it, and many others. So the media outlets, there's a big story in CNN saying that homes are unaffordable because prices are going up 4 times income. Sounds pretty scary. Sounds like if I were out in the marketplace, maybe I wouldn't want to purchase a home. So what we have to understand is there is a few different ways that we should be looking at this that are very different than the incorrect ways the media is looking at it. So the first one is home prices. When they say that home prices are going up 12% or 14.8% or 15%, that is not home prices going up. That's the median home price. That's not appreciation. What does median home price mean? Right now, they say in the United States, the existing median home price, the home price for existing homes, is $313,000. That means of the homes being purchased, half are above $313,000, half are below $313,000. It doesn't mean that homes are going up. So that median home price has gone up about 14% year over year. Does that mean home values are going up? No, it just means more homes are being purchased on the upper end of the scale. Why? Megan, why are there more homes being purchased on the upper end of the scale?
Because that's all that's available right now. Inventory is so tight.
That's correct. So because inventory is so low on the lower end of the scale, there are simply fewer transactions. So because more homes are being purchased above that price range, now I know in California, 313 seems very low, but remember, this is the national average. However, the same system applies to California when they're talking about this. So they're saying, okay, home prices are going up. They're not. Home prices are going up, however. How much? We go to the main source for this, and that's Case-Shiller. Now, Case-Shiller, what they do is they actually follow homes for many decades, and they take that same home at one point in time when it actually closed, and then they measure the next time it sells, and then in that zip code, they can figure what the actual appreciation was on an annual compounded basis. So because they have so much data for so many years, they can do this. And what they are saying is right now, through the first 3 quarters of 2020, home values are going up 5.7% per year. Now, Megan and I and Dan will take a bit of a pat on the back for saying that our forecast at the beginning of the year was 5.5 to 6. So here we are at 5.7. We're looking pretty good on that forecast. Now, maybe we might miss it because by the end of the year, if appreciation continues like this, we may edge above 6%, so we'll be off slightly, but it's right in the wheelhouse of where we forecasted it. In 2021, we're forecasting similar numbers between 5 and 5.5% appreciation in 2021. So we think that we're going to see really good appreciation. Now, remember, somebody puts 10% down on a home. If it appreciates 5%, how much did they make on their investment? You know that they made 50% on their investment, right? So this is really, really important for us to understand. All right, so back to affordability. So we talk about home values going up really 5.7%. That's certainly more accurate. But the story said home values, which is incorrect, were going up much greater than incomes. That's because what they did was they looked at median income on an hourly basis. There's a lot wrong with that. So if you take everybody, not everybody's a homeowner, that young guy or that young gal who's working at a fast food restaurant, they're 17 years old, they're not yet a home buyer. Now, they will be eventually, but not right now. So they shouldn't be included in that. But more importantly, hourly earnings, sure, it's an important look at hourly earnings, but what if I worked less hours, or what if I worked more hours? What you really should look at that nobody does are weekly earnings. Now, when you look at weekly earnings, believe it or not, they're about 5.5% per year. So you might say, okay, they're very close to each other, so homes are remaining pretty close to an affordable level. That's also not the right way to look at it. Once we know what the right metrics are, now we know what the right appreciation metric is, we know what the right income metric is, but you don't use all of your income to purchase a home. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to share my screen, and I'd like to show you a chart that I'm going to pull up right now. And I'm going to share my screen while I have this up and show it to you. And please tell me if we're good. And I believe that you can now see that chart, right?
Yeah,
So
yes.
what we see is affordability right now in 2020 is in the top 7 of all time. Now you might say, Barry, how is that freaking possible? Homes are going up like crazy. How are they even more affordable? Because the way you measure affordability has to do with interest rates and income. It's based on monthly payment. Now let's look at a simple example. So assume a year ago, you were looking for a home, but you didn't go through with the purchase because you heard Diana Olick or these Crash Brother idiots, or you heard from Adam Data, who all they do is put out bad stuff, or all these other people at CNN, and they said, don't buy a home, like they've been saying for 9 years, and you did not buy a home. Now, a year ago, your P&I payment would have been $1,000 a month. Now, maybe a year ago, your corresponding income to qualify for $1,000 a month P&I payment might have been in the neighborhood of $5,000 a month. That probably makes sense to most of you, I hope. So P&I is 1,000, your income's probably 5,000. I'm just giving you the average according to Fannie and Freddie. Now, a year later, let's keep it simple. You didn't buy it last year, but a year later, homes have appreciated 5%. Now, you're talking to a member of camp. You probably now understand that you should be buying a home, and you say, okay, but the home is 5% more for a similar home or that exact same home. So if the interest rate environment, let's just say, were to stay stable, then what would your payment have gone up on every month to pay for a home that's 5% more? Well, it's going to go up 5%. That means that your payment, instead of $1,000 a month, would be $1,050. $1,050 a month payment means you're paying $50 a month more. How much does your income have to go up every month? It's got to go up $50 a month to offset it, so you're equal as far as affordability goes. So what percent increase is $50 a month on a $5,000 income? Is it a 5% rise? No, it's a 1% rise. You see, the media is very bad in math, so they don't understand this. So when we see today that incomes are going up by, let me see, can you guys see me? Can you see us with our cameras? Okay.
Yeah, we can see it.
That incomes are going up at 5.5% or so. Get this, if interest rates remain stable, home prices can appreciate 15%, 20%, 25%, and guess what happens? They become more affordable, not less affordable. Now, we just have to understand the basics of this, because this is a very important point for us when we're talking with our clients, when we're talking with our realtors, when you're talking to the media, because you should be the media resource. And Megan, this is something great that people should do on social media as well, right?
Yes, they should be talking about this. And I also wanted to point out, those of you that are MBS Highway subscribers, we will be releasing an article on this very topic tomorrow. So you can go ahead and share that out as well and feel comfortable talking about it.
And Megan, I believe you're already working on a social studio script for something like this.
Yes.
Right? Okay, great. Great. So guys, this is an important point for us to make, and it's something that that we certainly want to go through. Now, I want to bring a couple of other charts in today that I wanted to kind of go over with you. So let me just get those ready. Please bear with me just a minute here, because I want to talk to you about a few other things. I'm going to share my screen one more time, and I think you can see the chart here. And on this chart, what we're looking at is we're looking at vacancies. So why are vacancies something important to look at? Because if you have a home and it's vacant and it's up for sale and it's sitting, you may be of the mindset to say, you know, this thing's costing me $4,000 or $5,000 a month. Maybe what I'll do is I'll just dump it by dropping the price 10,000 and get rid of it. Well, if it's not vacant, then you don't have that desire to do so. And people that say that right now we are in a situation where there is the possibility of a bubble or real estate values dropping, like you hear from Diana Olick and Adam Data and the Crash Brothers, how is that going to happen? The inventory level is at its lowest level in history. Look at this drop that we've seen in inventory. Now, the market's hot when inventory is this low. It's to the all-time lowest level. The market gets in trouble when inventory is very high, like it is here or here, not like where it is right here. Okay, so team, this is a very, very good environment if you could get into a home to wind up putting yourself in the position to now have appreciation remain very robust. And as I mentioned, we went over this together. And one of the things I also wanted to talk with you about is the equity cushion. So do you know that 87% of homes on the market are below an 80 LTV? So that's more than 20% equity. 95% are below a 90 LTV. So there's a lot of equity in there. So anybody says, okay, well, forbearances or foreclosures, it's not going to come to be. A home that's priced on the market today is selling within 3 weeks. If it's priced well, it's selling within 3 days. So I just wanted to kind of bring those up to you. Megan and Audrey, in case I wanted to kind of throw it back to you guys and see maybe if any of the members have any questions on that, Kev. Let's see if there's anything that that you or Audrey or Megan Jackson or Megan Anderson have just as follow-ups to that, or if you'd like to.
I have a comment on it, and because I'm here in San Francisco, and San Francisco home prices are astronomical. And I was at a NAM conference, and I ran into this lender from Alabama, and he was like, "Oh my God, San Francisco, your homes are so unaffordable." I'm like, actually, I beg to differ. I go, your average 3-bedroom home in Mobile, Alabama, what's the price range? And I don't remember what he said, but let's say he said $275. I said, interesting. San Francisco, same 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom, decent home. Don't have to step over a homeless guy to get into your doorway. It's going to go for $1.8 million. And he goes, oh my God, that's astronomical. No one can afford that. I go, well, I've got a question for you. How many offers do you typically get on that $2.75 million home? He goes, oh, 2 or 3. I'm like, 2 or 3? That would be a nightmare in San Francisco. San Francisco, we get 10 to 20 offers on the homes. I think there's more people can afford a home in San Francisco than can afford a home in Mobile, Alabama. And it's just driven by jobs.
Right.
Yeah.
Kevin, you're so right. And don't forget, the income levels are going to be significantly higher in San Francisco. Remember, just because that home price in the example you gave is somewhere around 6 times more expensive for that home in San Francisco, the income doesn't have to be 6 times higher for the exact reason we just talked about. So even if the income is 2 times higher, which it easily is, or 3 times higher, you could afford 4, 5, 6 times the price of the home. So it speaks exactly to what you're saying with regards to affordability.
Yeah, absolutely. We have the same conversation in the East Bay too. It's expensive, but in the town that I live in, you can rent a 2-bedroom, apartment for $6 grand a month. And if you're, playing for the Warriors or the 49ers, you're probably living there along with a lot of other people. But why would you do that unless you are a transient sports figure? And why wouldn't you just go buy a house? Just go buy a house, So it's I love that you give us the tools that we need to make that point and drive that point home. It's really important. It really helps our cause. There's so much misinformation. I saw a post on Facebook not too long ago where there was this conversation about the bubble and how, oh God, here we go, it's 2008 all over again. I'm like, absolutely not. It is, every buyer is qualified, every single one. Everybody has shown the ability to repay. And at least where we are, the people who have lost their jobs, sadly, for the others, they are not typically the folks that are buying the $1.8 million houses yet. Hopefully that remains the same, but everyone's well qualified. There's so much cash in the market. There is, and the lenders it's a completely different vibe this time around. Like, it really seems like lenders are committed to keeping people in their houses. So again, we need to convey that message to our clients. That's a good reason for you to reach out and touch them. And that will make you more valuable than if they push a button to get a mortgage. So we always have to remember that.
And I just want to say too that there's going to be, we've already seen it. There's so many articles constantly coming out, and you have to remember and you have to remind your clients that news articles are there to get eyeballs. That's ultimately how they bring in revenue. And if you want to combat this, a great way, once you guys are able to articulate it and understand it, is to pinpoint out these articles, pinpoint them, and talk about why they're not correct. And that will solidify you as an advisor and really help build trust within that client relationship.
But I think and in California, we have an ongoing conversation and problem with the idea that rent control will bail people out and save them, and that you should just be a renter, because we'll keep the rents low artificially. We're going to have private individuals subsidize the housing market. But the only way to pass on family wealth is to own property. I mean, that is how most people do it. And so, you know, making sure that we stay on top of the legislation that comes out as fast and furious, especially in California, so that they aren't able to legislate things like Proposition 19 is doing, where it makes it harder for families to pass on property without there being a big tax hit. So it's something we're always paying attention to, but holy smokes, it's a lot. Always a lot. In the meantime,
should I get to the
Okay.
question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Nick said, now that many high income earners can now work anywhere with internet connection, how do you think that affects demand and prices in the tertiary markets as well as major hubs?
So I think that what you're seeing is a lot of movement from California to Nevada. You already know that. You're seeing it in the Northeast to Florida. We already know that. And I think that trend will continue to be kind of on the pace that it is. It's not a mass exodus, but there are going to be people that are going to try and become more tax efficient and by making those moves. So we know that that's going to be something that will continue into the future. But there's just such a shortage of homes right now that the housing market itself is able to withstand that for the most part.
The next one is really good. I'm excited for you to get into this one. So no one is talking about the forbearance crisis and upcoming foreclosure wave. Barry, enlighten us.
Well, there is not a foreclosure wave, and there's not going to be a forbearance crisis. Yes, there are transactions in forbearance, but let's remember what happens when forbearance ends. It's not like you have a big lump sum to pay. The amount that was postponed rides along like a second mortgage or a home equity line of credit almost, except there's no payments due on it. You have to pay it in full when? Either when the loan matures, when you pay off the mortgage due to a refinance, or when you pay off the mortgage based upon a sale. So there is no big bill coming due. What will happen is now you will have to start making your payments. And if you are in a position where it's difficult to make your payments due to the hot housing market and due to the equity that the vast majority of these individuals have in their homes, it will be something that will be easy for them to handle on forbearance. Now, foreclosures, you can imagine, they've gone up a little bit, but from extremely low levels. Foreclosures right now are, get this, 0.3%. And that's on homes with a mortgage. When you account for the fact that there are a significant amount of homes, 34% of them, that are free and clear, let me give you what this means. If you were to look out and be able to see 500 homes, 500. So you're looking at, you count 500 homes. One of those 500 is in foreclosure. It's not so bad. We don't want anybody to be, but there are going to be periods of time where something like this happens. 1 out of 500, not too bad. And because of equity growth, because of appreciation, we are seeing situations, and because you saw the number of people that have significant equity, and we know how fast homes are selling if they're priced reasonably, there really should be a very manageable level of situations with either foreclosure or situations where forbearance causes a hardship to the family.
So there are two things one on each topic. The first one is, again, and I already said it, the lenders are working with people this time as opposed to last time. This time the lenders want people to stay in their homes, and they're working to that end. So the surprising thing that we talked about last week was the number of people who are delinquent and not in forbearance. And why is that? So again, our call was to contact your clients, make sure that you are shouting that message from the rooftops so that people understand that if they're having trouble, they can ask for a forbearance and it will most likely be granted. And again, the lenders are not trying to get their properties. It's a completely different energy this time around. And then back to the previous comment about people working from homes in the higher end, like the tech jobs, et cetera. Now Facebook, they can all work from their homes, et cetera. I'm listening to conversations amongst commercial guys, and their take on this is changed since like April, May, June. It was, yeah, everyone's working from home. This is working great. This is no problem. This is how it's going to be going forward. And now what I'm hearing is they're really starting to understand that there is a loss that happens when you are not all in the same space and that there's a vibe that you miss out on, the synergy that happens, the innovation that happens when you have everyone together. And so it may very well end up evolving back to something different, and perhaps people will have two homes. Like one of my clients, he's pretty high up at Facebook, and so he bought a house in Bend, Oregon, but he's maintaining a residence here. So and maybe he'll make that his primary residence. Maybe that's a better tax move. Who knows? But regardless, people are going to, I think that it's too soon to call this in terms of whether this will be a permanent, everyone's going to work from home. I know that I sure don't want to. I do not. So, and I know I'm not alone.
Great.
Yeah, hopefully with this vaccine, everything will go back to normal sooner rather than later. I do want to ask one more question, and then Audrey, you can get into what you wanted to talk about. But that was, how will the change in the White House affect the rates in the coming year? And I'd also like you to address the Biden 15,000 first-time home buyer credit and why that might seem shiny and enjoyable on the outside and what that really could mean long-term.
So I don't know that interest rates will be affected that dramatically. Interest rates will be under position of the same environment we've been in, which is slow growth, technology helping to make things faster and cheaper, which probably contributes to low inflation. Low inflation is going to create an environment of low interest rates. Just have to be a little careful because the statistics currently are 50% of all mortgages are below 4%. So if you think that you need about 0.75% as an incentive to refinance, that means if interest rates were to go up towards 3.25, you could see about 50% of the refinance market dry up, and that represents 70% of all transactions. So that means you could see 35% of the transactions disappear. So you have to be really sharp on your debt consolidation tools because that'll give you a tremendous advantage, and see the future before it becomes obvious today. Make sure your realtor contacts, don't just do your refis, do them, but also raise your game and make sure you're taking care of those purchase transactions and those realtors and add value for them. The fintech companies that have gone public, they've got a war chest of money to withstand a price war. So you have to make sure that you're able to combat them because they're coming after you. So get your relationships where you're adding value, make sure you're adding advice for your customers. Things like CMA would be a key one. The bid over ask tool in MBS Highway, get your own MBS estimate, which is an AVM that'll be yours that you can co-brand with your realtor, put it on their website so people can go there, stay away from Zillow. There's a lot that you can do today to be really smart about the change that will eventually happen. Now, Joe Biden's tax plan for first-time home buyers, Megan, you said it very nicely. It seems shiny. It seems like it's a great idea. Who wouldn't want to see first-time home buyers a $15,000 tax credit? It seems great. It is a very bad idea because of the history that we know. So here's what happened in 2009, 2010. Good idea. Let's try and stimulate the really terrible housing market, create an incentive and a tax credit of $8,000. All that did is take people that were going to buy a home anyway, and it jammed them into a position where before April of 2010, they had to buy their home, and therefore it drove prices up. And prices actually did go up for a period of time. And then as soon as the tax credit ended, all these people that would have been here to support the market and buy homes, they were gone. They just bid prices artificially higher. So home prices dropped dramatically. And all those poor people that thought it was a good idea, that wanted to get that $8,000 tax credit, they lost $15,000 in value because they thought they were getting an $8,000 tax credit. So it was a bad idea then. It's a horrible idea today because $15,000 seems great, but the housing market's on fire. We already talked about before that there's very little, just like Megan told you, there's very little inventory on the low end. So you're going to take first-time home buyers in a inventory environment where there's nothing out there, then get them to try and do that. They're going to bid prices up for a period of time dramatically higher to get in to just take advantage of that $15,000 tax credit. There'll be a gold rush. And then what's going to happen is none of these people will be there. Prices will come from this parabolic level, come crashing down for a short period of time until they can find a normal level. But all those people that spent that that thought they were getting that $15,000, all they did was spend more than $20,000 or $25,000 in bidding the price of their home up. So they're just going to get caught holding the bag. It'll make the situation with low inventory even worse. People are going to pony up. It will cause a dramatic loss of wealth in our country by doing this very, very silly and well-intended perhaps, but poorly thought out plan because all you have to do is just look at history. It's not 2,000 years ago, 10 years ago. We tried it. It failed horribly. And this is a different circumstance that will make it fail even worse.
So what's interesting about that is we had Roy Deloach, who's the NAM lobbyist, on last week to discuss the election and the results, et cetera, et cetera. And when we brought up that tax credit, he goes, not going to happen. I mean, it was very simple. He goes, there is no way that's happening. And I thought it was interesting that it's become this, I mean, this, you know, Democrat versus Republican conversation. And the reality is, it was the Republicans came up with it all those years ago. And again, well-intentioned, but frankly, the lower end, that is where all the down payment assistance programs are. That is where it is easiest to get into a property. Those are not the people who need help with this, in my opinion. And 15 grand is a drop in the bucket here. But we could really take money if the people who need it are the people who are above the conforming loan limit, but who live in these high cost areas where there's no hope for them. They're paying $6,000 a month in rent, but their kids are playing sports, which costs them another, you know, $1,500 a month and God knows what, and you're making 200 grand a year and you're poor. So those are the people who need help. They can't save for a down payment. So I think that the whole conversation is interesting. I'd love it to be less political and to be something that we could just discuss from a dollars and cents perspective. And what you say makes total sense, Barry, where you don't need it at this point. And again, Roy says not going to happen. So there we are. Interesting. Are there any other questions, Megan?
We answered a lot of them. I want you to get to what you wanted to.
All right. So one of the things we wanted to talk about today, we've mentioned it over the upcoming or the previous months, that Barry had a book coming out, and it did come out. It's called Money in the Streets. It's on sale right now at Amazon. As of this morning, there were only 10 copies left. So hopefully they will replenish their supply. In the meantime, we are going to, as a little perk for our members, for the first 20 members who contact Megan Jackson, not Megan Anderson, we are going to give you Barry's book. 20 members. Oh, sorry, Kevin. Okay, so we're negotiating how many to do. So first 20 people who contact Megan Jackson. What?
You're paying for the other 10. That's okay.
Yeah, right. Take it out of my hide, buddy. So anyway, so right now is your time. You cannot listen to this video later and order this. You cannot. It's the first 20 people right now during this until we end this session that contact Megan. We'll get you a copy of Barry's book. And Kevin and I have both read it all the way to the end. It's one of those books where you need to read it to the end, all the way to the end. But because we know Barry, you hear his voice when you're reading it. And so you hear the inflections, and you know the jokes, and you know it's really wonderful. And so Barry, nice job. It was, and Kevin and I both had some really great takeaways from this. And one of them is that we thought we'd share with everyone is, you know, this year has been hard on every possible level. Every time you turn around, there is some new pile of crap that we have to deal with, and it's tough. And Barry's book reminded us why we do what we do. I mean, we love our business, and we have to keep looking at it and being grateful for it and remember why we are getting up every day to do mortgages. And so for that, both Kevin and I thank you, right, Kevin?
Yeah, no, that was great. It was exactly the right message at the right time.
Well, thanks.
It was.
Kevin.
It was a real lift. And you know,
when you started writing this book, I don't know how long ago it was, but how did you know to have it come out right then at the right time? It was just perfect.
Well, I didn't know. And, you know, people like Megan Anderson kept on prodding me, saying, come on, you got to write a book here. So, you know, she definitely was someone that was pushing for me to do something like this. And I didn't want to just write a book. And I told people who had asked me for many years to write a book, I said, I wanted to make it something that would apply to everyone, not just people in the mortgage industry. And listen, thanks to you guys, I couldn't believe it when last week I got a notice from Amazon that it made #1 on their bestseller list for new releases. So I was extremely humbled. I actually got pretty emotional about it because I couldn't believe it. But this is something that I think if you're going through a tough time like we all go through, it can help you get through it. If you're going through a great time because the wind's at your back and you're doing good, it'll help you maximize it, but it can really help you see opportunities. There's so many lessons that I've learned through making mistakes. And while there's stories that, that I've experienced, it's not about me. It's more through me. It's stories that I think that everyone can relate to, and everyone can say, wow, this is a situation where if I handle it this way in the future, it might get better results for me.
Absolutely. Well, and one of the things that you were talking about is, when you hit a wall or you fail or you're feeling like a failure, that you need to just pick yourself back up and keep going, which again, this year has been full of those challenges because, I know that for myself personally, I've always been known for my communication. And it was in the last week, I've realized that I've been terrible at it this year. Terrible. So, it's good. It goes on and off, but I needed a reset. And that's what I'm doing this week, is a reset with, okay, a new system for this is how I'm keeping in touch with people, once a week so that they know what's happening on their loan, even if it's just, hey, nothing, still nothing, but hang in there because it's going to happen. So it's really good for all of us to just take a minute and reflect, which you clearly spend a fair amount of time doing, and figure out what you need to do next, right?
Well, it'll get you to your goals too. Just the way you got to map out your goals. How do you get there? Also, it deals with fear. It deals with intimidation. A lot of times you see somebody else in the mortgage business, if somebody is a top producer, and whether they're in your company or a competitor, and they're doing all these things, and sometimes you get a little intimidated. How does that happen? Well, we talk about that. We talk about exactly what to do, exactly how to handle it, exactly how to view it. Much of it is mindset, how to get your mindset straight. One of the things that I've learned from some dear friends of mine. One of them is I'll give you a quick story because it applies to the Bay Area. So Carlos Beltran, Hall of Fame baseball player. I had dinner with him a couple of weeks ago in Puerto Rico. He's a dear friend of mine. So we talk, and Carlos is just one of those guys. He's a very cerebral guy. And he's like, one of the things he said that I really like, he says, every person is like a book. He says, if you spend time with them, maybe you could take a page from their book and add it to your book. And I thought that was just really sweet the way that he said that. But the other thing that Carlos said that was really amazing, he says at an all-star game, well, he knew he made it because the all-star game was in San Francisco. And there he is. Batting second was Barry Bonds. Batting third was Carlos. Batting fourth was Ken Griffey Jr. He looked to his left and his right. He says, wow, I must have made it, right? But he said when he was there in the San Francisco Giants locker room, Barry Bonds had his, big 5 lockers, big screen TV couch. He said, but no one came up to him except for Carlos. He's the only one. He wanted to talk to Barry Bonds. He said, listen, I've always admired you, and I would like to learn from you. And Barry Bonds took him and he said, Carlos, he says, all these players here, they're all stars, just like you are. He says, I watch your game. I love your game. He says, all these players could have asked me. Nobody came up to me to ask me except you. Nobody humbled themselves to want to learn except you. He said, what we're doing? We're going to the batting cage. When he took Carlos to the batting cage, now all the other players, they wanted to in on this, right? They went, what is he going to say? He takes him to the batting cage. He locks it. So locks everybody out, right? So nobody could see. And everybody thinks he's going to talk about skills with Carlos. And what he said was magical. He said, everybody's good in baseball. You look at any athletic event, right? Go to the Olympics or watch the Olympics. The winner and somebody who doesn't get a medal, it's hundredths of a second, right? That's not like skill, okay? Everybody's got great skill. In baseball, if you're playing the major leagues, you got great skill. The thing of it is that it's mindset. 20% is skill, 80% is mindset. But what does every coach work on with you? Everything that you're doing, all your time training, it's on skill. Nobody spends time on mindset. So what did he do? He spoke to Carlos about mindset. Everything other than baseball that can make you great. And that's when Carlos went on, obviously, to be, a Hall of Fame player eventually, and one of 3 players in the history of Major League Baseball to hit over 400 home runs as a switch hitter. Just all of his accomplishments. And he attributes so much of that to that revelation that this is not about skill, it's about mindset. And you could apply that anywhere. So you're in the mortgage business, your skills are going to be good. You know how to put a loan together, okay? But what is your mindset? How are you approaching it? How are you raising your game? What are you doing today to plan for the future? Are you just in the midst of doing loans, or are you doing things right now to anticipate the changes, to be prepared for those changes, to address those changes, to see the future before it becomes obvious? So I just felt that that was so good, because so much of the book deals with mindset.
It really does. You talk a lot about that. And one of the things you learn about Barry, and that I've learned over the years, is that he is very approachable. So that's how he and I got to know each other. We met each other at events. It was, hi, how are you? We sat next to each other at dinner one time, but I never really understood. I actually told him, I said, honestly, I thought you were just another big mortgage ego. I mean, I'm just being super honest here. And I didn't realize your heart. And that's what I love the most about you, is that you have a heart, not just for yourself, but for others. Throughout the book, you mention names, you give credit to people who helped you or who were part of your journey. And that is so critically important. So many times people think that, oh, I'm successful and I just have to act like I've got it all together. And they do not open themselves up to learning anything else, or to acknowledging that they had help to get there, and you do. And that's a beautiful thing, and it's something we can all learn from, because that is important. Other people matter. You know, when there's a big shot up on the stage, somebody is behind them, helping them do what they're doing. And acknowledging that is a big deal, I think. And so I love that you do that, and that you talk about this reverse engineering. Why don't you speak to that for a minute? Because you give people pointers on how to back into solving a problem or setting goals and achieving them, etc. Just give them enough so they still have to read the book, and we're not telling them the ending at all. They have to read the book, okay? No ending, got it? But
No,
talk to for just a second about the reverse engineering, because it's good.
My mind's so bad. I was going to say no happy ending, but okay. So anyway, when it comes to first of all, thank you so much for the really kind words. When it comes to kind of reverse engineering it, it's kind of like if you're going to a destination, what do? You go into your car, you plug in the destination first, and then you kind of see what all the steps are. So you essentially, it's reversed engineered. So here's where I have to go. Here's all the steps I have to get there. And what's very important for us to make sure that we do is we know that while the distance to the end goal might be a bit far, each interim step is manageable. And what we have to do is stay on pace, stay on a plan. Megan will tell you this. I live off of lists, and Megan does too, and everybody. So we live off of lists. We eat our own home cooking. So it's every single day what we want to do is we want to stay on offense. We're talking about baseball. You can only score in baseball when you're on offense. Now you need to play good defense. So you need to be reactionary. You need to handle stuff. But if you want to score, you have to stay on offense. How do you stay on offense? By you being the one that dictates what the events are going to be. So every day, by you having your list, here's what I need to accomplish. Yes, I'm going to play defense. I'm going to address what comes at me. But those times when I have a chance to be on offense, here's where I'm going to score. I'm going to continue to march and move through to get to my goals. So when we reverse engineer something and we map something out, a lot of it is really where your focus is and where your vision is. And, you know, Megan knows this because, you know, Megan's been on the track too with me, but I like to drive cars on the track. And what I like to do is take instruction from really good professional drivers that can help me just be better. So I love learning. I consider myself more of a student than a teacher. So when I learned on the track many different lessons from many different times of having that experience, one lesson that always stuck out to me was focus. And my instructor said, okay, so where are you looking? And I was just, well, I'm looking right in front of me, it's thinking like, duh, He says, most people, 99% of people when they drive, the way we're taught to drive is you're looking at the car in front of you, and catch yourself, you probably do the same thing. He said, but that's the wrong way to have your eyes focused. And I said, what do you mean? He says, here, he took a bottle of water and he put that bottle of water about 20 feet in front of me, and he put it down on the ground about 20 feet in front of me. And he says, okay, I want you to look at the bottle of water. I says, okay. He says, now, can you read the sign down the road? I said, no. He says, okay, now look at the sign. Okay. Can you still see the bottle of water? Yes. And I was like, ding. He says, that's the way you should drive. People miss things because they're looking here and they miss all this. If you're looking here, you won't miss it and you could still see what's in front of you. Change
Right.
your focus. And by doing that, if you listen to this right now and you do it, you'll be a better driver. But if you do that in life, if you get out of just looking at what's in front of you and you start looking at all this and being mindful of what's in front of you, but instead change your focus and look at all the opportunity you have to have a lot more success. You just have to.
And I also I want to mention one thing is that you mentioned the list as a way to kind of stay, you know, ahead of things. And Barry doesn't just do the list the day of, you know, that's like looking at the water bottle and not the rest of it. He makes it the night before. So it's constantly being prepared for that. So I just wanted to reiterate that fact. And someone did ask, is your book on Audible yet? I know you recorded it, but I don't know.
Yeah, so I wanted it to be in my voice. So listen, it's not as good as a professional reader would be. It's hard, okay? It's hard to do. So it's like a little home cooking, you know, it could have a little burnt on the edges, but I wanted it to be in my voice. So I did record it. It has been sent to the first level of editing. That's been done and it's been shipped off to Audible. Now they got to do whatever they got to do. I don't know how it goes. This is my first book, so I don't really know. I'm kind of ignorant with this stuff, but I'm hearing that within the next few weeks that it should be available on Audible. But it's kind of good to have this in your hands anyway, you know what I mean? Because you'll want to go back to this. It's really not designed like a novel where you read it once. You're going to want to go back to this with life experiences and kind of go through some of these things.
Well, okay, a couple things. First off,
The dog ears too.
I have all sorts of things marked because that is absolutely true. And one of the things you were talking about is really important. So you have a chapter that's called Stay Hungry. And you have these quotes, which I love. The difference between a successful person and others is not a lack of strength, not a lack of knowledge, but rather a lack of will. That's Vince Lombardi, which I think is an absolutely great thing to think about as we head into 2021. And God help us, hopefully a different kind of year in the broader sense of things. But it's also going to be, as always in our industry, evolving our business. And so we need to be focused on what do we need. That's where looking down the road, as you were talking about, is so critically important right now. Because if we're not doing that, I mean, those of us who have gone through refi booms before, you know, we all know the switch gets flipped and boom, the bottom falls out of everything. I mean, literally overnight sometimes. And so you want to be prepared for that and be planning for that. And so with that, we have a webinar coming up in December with Megan Anderson. We're going to talk about social stories, and it's on December, let's see, 10th. Megan Anderson, December 10th, we'll be doing that. So continue to tune into Megan's
well, I have to tell you, I'm so proud of Megan with what she has done. You know, she's just, and Megan is like the epitome of somebody who's always learning and always pushing herself and always trying to look down the road. So that's going to be something that I know will be great for you guys to listen to. It always is. I always learn from Megan when I listen to her. I want you to know that when we are going to be looking at this change, when it does eventually happen, it's inevitable that it will occur. It first looks like, okay, things slow down a little bit, and it's like, oh, good, I could have used that, okay? And then time goes on a little bit, and then it's like, well, maybe it's not so good, but it's still okay. Your checks keep coming in big. Then it's a little bit of stress that takes your mind off it to get those deals closed before the rate locks expire. So there's a little stress there. So you're busy doing that. And then all of a sudden, one day happens when you're saying, oh, my pipeline is really bare, and I'm kind of bored, right? And if you don't act today to do it, then all the people who did will be shoring up relationships, improving their skills, and getting a jump on the market before you. Don't be the laggard, be the leader.
Right. I keep telling people, I'll hear people say, I mean, we're all exhausted. Honestly, we're tired, right? It's been a long run. And people are like, I wish the rates would go up. I'm like, shut up.
No, you
Just
don't.
shut up. Don't
Yep.
say that. Do not say that. You should know better than that. And you don't take your foot off the pedal during the holidays. That is not a time for us to take a break. I hear people say that. I'm like, come on. December historically has always been my busiest month. I hope that that is the case this year. But we need to work towards that, because as soon as you take a break, then that breaks the flow, which you also discuss, and how important it is to keep the cycle being continuous and not have, you know, these big ups and downs. And then I just wanted one last quote that you had in here, which I love, because the best thing someone ever said about me was that I was courageous. And so you said, I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. And that was Nelson Mandela. So again, where you are sharing the credit with these really wise little pearls throughout the book, I really enjoyed those too. And we're going to leave the ending for everyone to read on their own. So it'll be interesting to see whether we have our 20 people who have chimed in to get their book from us. The rest of you, please go on Amazon and order it immediately. Oh, we do. Megan says that we have, that didn't take long. All right, I'm glad it wasn't less than that.
And you guys better hurry up. There's only 10 left on Amazon, so I posted the link. If you weren't one of those lucky people, go buy it now.
Okay, so Megan is saying her email is blowing up. So she's got her 20. Hurry up. And are you going to get more books on Amazon?
Oh,
Barry?
yeah. They replenish them. They know what they're doing. I have nothing to do with it. They know what they're doing a lot better than I don't know what goes on. I don't know what goes on in the Amazon world. They're a lot smarter than I am. But I do know that we all have fear, and we can all be paralyzed by fear. So I share some fun stories in there about how to overcome fear and why it's so important to overcome fear, and what the outcome is of overcoming fear. So we talk about that because I've been afraid to do things as well. You know, we all, and that's why that quote from Nelson Mandela is so important. You're not brave because you don't feel fear. Yeah, I'm scared to death to do certain things or of certain situations, but it's addressing those and dealing with those and facing them that I think is what we have to work on in ourselves. And there's ways to do that. So we talk about that together. You know, Megan does such a good job with that with everyone, and people have a fear of posting videos or social media. And I love the way that she teaches people and walks through with that. But there are so many examples that we have of that and dealing with fear and overcoming those fears.
Yeah, the other one you talk about in the book is overcoming adversity, and like when something terrible happens in one's life. You know, and it's rather interesting how it comes from that character that can overcome that and move on and not let that be them. It actually makes them better.
Kevin, we're all going to suffer, right? We're all going to have tough times. We're all going to face adversity. But there are ways to view that. There are ways to overcome it. There are ways to limit you feeling pissed or upset or sad. There's ways that we can actually train ourselves to put a limit on that and then turn it around and not rob the joy from ourselves, not rob the joy that we all can give other people, because we do that when we're in a better state of mind. We bring joy to other people, and that gives us fulfillment. And that's what we really need to be happy. It's one thing, and we all have to set achievement goals, monetary goals. Those are critical. Let's do those. But there's a lot of very wealthy people who are unhappy. There's a lot of very successful people that are very unhappy. And that's because the other half of it is fulfillment. And what we have to do is we have to gain fulfillment. And most of the time that comes from helping other people and doing good for other people. And if we have that balance, things are a lot better for us.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh my God. All right. Well, we love you guys very much. We're at the top of the hour. You know, I also just want you to know that I'm going to take with me forever the idea that if I am ever to follow my friends off the edge of a cliff into the water below, to not hesitate before plunging over the side of the. So there you go.
That's part of the book. You guys will like that story.
Yeah. So get the book. Thank you again. Barry is joining us again next month with Megan, and we always will look forward to that. And we'll see you on, what day is today? Tuesday? We'll see you Thursday for our happy hour. Please join us. It's always interesting to see who will show up and what questions or thoughts will be shared. And with that, have a wonderful week. Mwah.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, guys.